Today, I sit down with Matthew Jones of Jones Hargreaves, primarily a building surveying consultancy, but also have now added M&E capability and also energy. They started out in 2009, probably the worst time for anybody who was back in 2008, 2009 to start a business, and they've grown steadily. What I really liked about Matthew is he's just a really humble guy. Didn't particularly want to take credit for anything they've done, albeit a very successful business, 56 people, 7 offices. And I think for this is a real shot in the arm for those individuals who are just decent individuals who want to grow a business by doing a good job. I think you'll all get a lot from the chat with Matt. Right, I'm delighted to be joined by Matthew Jones of Jones Hargreaves, building consultancy, primarily based all over the UK, aren't you, in terms of number of offices? So welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's great to be here.
So I guess to begin with, can we just have a bit of a brief overview of where the business is now in terms of, rough headcount, main service lines, main sectors, locations, etc.
Yeah, so we're predominantly building surveying, but in recent years have brought in mechanical and electrical consultancy and energy.
Okay.
Branded as energy, but covers quite a broad church of things.
Yeah.
So currently we are 56 members in the team, including the 3 sort of equity partners, if you like, and spread over 7 offices around the UK.
Right.
So London right up to Glasgow and most of the cities in between. So
where was the first office? At Leeds?
We set up 2009, which that time. So
fun time.
To that.
Yeah.
But so myself and Peter Hargreaves, hence the really imaginative company name. So originally, we set up in Leeds, but with quite a sort of national client base, I suppose, as you'd expect, really.
Mm-hmm.
So very then quickly, London and another colleague, Matt Williams, joined, and we sort of expanded from there, really. So into what we are now, I suppose. So.
Yeah, brilliant. And are there all those offices? Kind of permanent offices, some of those satellite offices as such?
They've all got permanent members of the team based within them. Won't surprise you to learn London's the sort of largest in terms of headcount.
Yeah.
And then, across it really depends. We sort of very much recruit on what people can do and who they are, rather than where they happen to live or be based. Because the work's so spread around. So, they're all sort of core offices with real people in them, not just addresses. Yeah,
excellent. Good, brilliant, good to hear. And this is going to put you on the spot in terms of we can just have rough splits in terms of. So you said building surveying, mechanical, energy. What are the what's the kind of headcount split across those 3 discipline types?
I think in terms of that sort of 57, there's sort of 45 what we call sort of fee earners. So chartered members of staff who. Predominantly building surveyors. We've currently got 6 M&E consultants spread across the M and the E, if you like, and a similar 6 in the energy team, which, again, that's quite a diverse range of sort of chartered environmentalists, commercial energy assessors in that team to cover quite everything from BREEAM, neighbours, an EPC right through, really, and then feeding into the teams. So, in location wise, we're quite, we don't just have all the energy team in one place, all the M&E in another place. They're quite spread throughout, which is part of what we try and offer clients, which is the joined up approach, really. That's the intention.
Good.
Yeah.
And is there any particular, would you say, any particular sector focus in terms of where you spend most of your time?
We'd always been predominantly commercial, pretty much entirely commercial building surveying.
Yeah.
We touch in, offices, warehouses, retail, and that tends to be our client base's core. We involved in sort of residential on the kind of more, larger blocks, or where it's, part of a portfolio where it's, especially in London, retail above, residential above retail and offices and mixed use developments, that kind of thing. And then, a little bit of other sectors, the sort of, elderly healthcare sector and that kind of thing, as and when, particular clients of requirement. But yeah, predominantly it all comes from a commercial background, really.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And so, quite interesting, the mix of things you're doing beyond the core of building surveying. How do you end up going down the route of, kind of MEP and energy, maybe as opposed to say project management or QSing? Yeah. It's quite an interesting mix that you've got there.
It is really. I mean, on the building surveying side, we do. Yeah, we have. We don't really specialise in teams. We do. We are project managers and we project manage buildings. We have certainly now one member of the team is purely projects, but because of the transferable skill within the building surveying team, they backfeed that, but that is an area of growth. But then the idea behind bringing in M&E and energy was to create, when we do any project or technical due diligence survey, dilapidations, largely it will need specialist mechanical engineering input. Yeah. And we were, sub-consulting that, or clients were having to go elsewhere for that to then feed into our advice. So, and because it's all part and parcel of one piece of work, if you like, having that in-house, means that, I'm working on a project, I'm sitting opposite the guys that, and if there's a quick question on something, it's not, I've got to email him or ring him and he's in a meeting and he's doing this. And, and it also helps with the sort of commercial aspect in terms of fee scales and that kind of thing. Energy-wise, we sort of, obviously in the last 5 or 6 years, the need for, clients to demonstrate their ESG credentials, get their buildings to perform better, looking at MEES and the improvements required in energy performance. That again feeds into that piece and knits in really well with what we offer as building surveyors. Really, we want to be that sort of trusted advisor to clients and be able to rely on our own internal, information and skills, if you like, to produce a kind of, not a complete one-stop shop, but, to solve the problems that they've got and to help them, really.
Yeah. And I've been banging on for probably last year about this. I think it's going to be a kind of a golden era for building surveying because we're moving into a different world, aren't we, around, still charging for net zero, about making sure your buildings are efficient. Yeah. There's kind of a commercial imperative now as much as the right thing to do imperative. There's a commercial imperative now, isn't it, to make buildings more efficient. So I get why you've done all that, which is really interesting. And certainly we're seeing out with more and more that the amount of, in any kind of, whatever it be, a refurb or whatever you're doing to a building, M&E spend is becoming a larger percentage of that, isn't it? Because that's often the solution primarily. Yeah, and
it's a lot of our clients are very clued up and are experts in the commercial aspect of buildings, buying, selling, letting, all of that stuff, and they're relying on us to backfeed them to make sure that they're compliant and that they're ahead of the market. And increasingly, people are more aware of what they need to do or what they want to do. Again, the it's born out of legislation originally, but that's sort of, again, without, we're not going into politics. But
we'll get me on politics at the moment.
Inevitably, these sort of targets then, has some political impact and they shift and they change. But there's still a demand from a lot of the key clients. They want to be in front. They're you've got an office building, you're competing in a city like Manchester where we sit today. Tenants are looking at that. Tenant organisations are looking at that. They need to be in buildings that aren't guzzling carbon. And are doing what they need to do for their their clients and what they're expected to deliver. So there's a commercial aspect to it. But of course, golden age of buildings. I hope so.
I just think
we've certainly seen. We've certainly seen that.
Yeah, I just get the impression that's where we are. Obviously there's a whole mandate. Let's reuse, let's knock down. Again, which should absolutely bleed into, building surveyors being needed.
Well, it is. I mean, there's all sorts of stats you can throw out. I think I'll probably get this wrong, but I think something like 80, perhaps more % of the buildings that will be here in 2050 are already built. Right. And yes, some of the newer stuff is very, very well performing, but you've got to bring up a lot. You can't, that's part of the whole ethos is not, that building doesn't perform, let's flatten it and build another one, embodied carbon and all this kind of stuff. I'll probably get slapped by my energy team for using the wrong words, but there's not a lot of the built environment that can't be made to work, to work and perform much better energy-wise. But of course, there's a sort of, and that was, again, bringing in the energy team, that was initially almost started as a means to an end, because clients were saying, we've got to do this thing called an ESG report when we buy a building now. And, it kind of all started very much in that world. Yeah. And now it's a case of, well, actually, we've identified your building that's got an EPC of an F that the tenant's coming out of, and you've got to re-let it, but you're not allowed to now because of MEES. What do you need to do? And then that creates building surveying work. Yeah. And the M&E is intrinsic within that as well. So that's why we've got that spread, really.
Yeah. And I guess you've got an increasing amount of kind of change of use of buildings, haven't you? As well, which is, a building that's designed to do one thing probably needs a massive overhaul to make it suitable for the thing they want to change it into.
Yeah, and even, if it's keeping the same use, the modern retail space, the modern office space is completely different to what it was even 10, 15 years ago. It's completely evolving, changing. So you've got to help clients to be in front of that, really.
Yeah. Okay, good. So 56 currently, I guess some might say, God, that's a lot of offices for a 56 person
well, it is,
team.
Yeah.
What was the business decision or logic behind that?
Obviously, when you start a sort of an owner-managed business, it depends on where the people are that you want to bring in to a large degree. Obviously, London goes without saying. We have, even when we, on the first day of setting up in Leeds, our client base was, while, yes, I suppose a lot of the work, because Peter had been in London for quite a long period previously, and he'd sort of just come up to Leeds, but, a lot of our work was naturally in that area, but it was coming from clients based in London, based, all over the UK. So, having the London presence, we're always getting instructions down there, and therefore having that presence there is sort of essential, really.
Yeah.
Matt Williams, who's our sort of managing partner, if you like, he joined us probably about a year or so after we set up. He was another sort of ex-colleague of ours, and he is from Wales, so he wants to live in South Wales. So, we have the South Welsh office, but then of course he had quite a lot of client contacts down there, and then people we brought in to support him in that office have got very strong client contacts down in that location. We've sort of were London, Leeds, Southwest, and then Bristol sort of, albeit is 30 miles from Cardiff, it's in a different country. It's like Leeds and Manchester.
Literally, it may well be as well.
And Edinburgh, Glasgow and stuff, so that sort of played into that part, really.
Yeah.
Manchester, again, a city that we were doing work in Manchester, but again, when you get to know certain cities, it's very, not insular, but there's a.
No, you're absolutely right. You fit that.
You want to be. You've got to be there. And again, we were speaking to somebody who was actually an ex colleague of ours, who's based in Manchester, who wanted to come on board. So that then gets built around there. I think Birmingham, again, big city. We actually had two guys in London who were keen to relocate out of London, so we didn't want to lose them, so let's go to Birmingham. Same with Glasgow. One of our colleagues was based in the southwest. She's Glaswegian, so she wanted to move home, and again we put a team in there. But yeah, I mean, obviously some of the offices are quite small in number, but I think having that spread around is healthy. Yes, we get together a lot. We try and get the team together a lot, sort of company events and that kind of thing. And there are some days I wish, we're all under one roof, because everybody really does, get on the gel together, all very similar type of people. But, you can't run a national or run national coverage.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that. Yeah. So it's, I think it works well.
And it's all about people, isn't it? At the end of the day, if you either identify somebody good, or you don't want to lose somebody good, there's lots of very big businesses where actually you speak to them, very big consultancies, and you actually speak to them. A lot of them, it was exactly that. The office network grew probably off the back of one individual, or maybe one client. Both ways. That'd be a reason to open up an office. From where they grew the business further.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is. I mean, that's the probably the key theme for us, and it always has been. Property is a people industry.
Yeah.
It's quite, or has been quite analog, I suppose, in that way. But for a consultancy like us, we're only as good as our team, really.
100%.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Getting the right people is crucial, really.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. So let's go right back to the beginning. How did you end up being a building surveyor?
How did I end up being a building surveyor? I think really I was doing my A-levels and I wasn't artistic enough to be an architect. My A-level physics basically wasn't up to civil engineering, and you look at it, it's brutally honest, but I'm supposed to say I've always had a passion for being a building surveyor. But when you're my parents were teachers, and I'd obviously like you do GCSEs, you do your A-levels, and you're in the sort of careers office looking through brochures as you would have done in the mid-90s. Obviously it's a bit more high-tech these days, and it just appealed to me, really, just that kind of buildings and refurbishing buildings, that kind of thing. And it's quite a straight line of A-levels, building surveying degree, straight into work, really. So that's how I've sort of come at it, if you like. So
so literally was that in terms of, like you say, looking through, obviously we're probably quite a similar age, Matthew. So like you say, it was very rudimentary in terms of the system and process. But I can't recall ever seeing building surveying as an option when I was looking through those things. There's no other. There's just literally that. There's no other influence outside of that.
I must have found the sort of a really dusty brochure covered somewhere. I think it. Again, I think that even at that point, it was probably a growing sort of industry, if you like, or service line, if you like. And I think, if you go right back to the 60s, 70s, the kind of work we do now was probably done by architects, and then very early sort of quantity surveyors, and then this building surveying sort of discipline came up, which still is a little bit of a...
Yeah, I've never thought about the history of building surveying, actually, now you say that. That's interesting.
It sort of fills... You can see where it's filled a few gaps, really, I suppose, because, we can... And again, what is a building surveyor? Well, some are almost architectural, and some are almost entirely what we'd call professional services, so DLAPs and TDD and that kind of thing. And it's that space that it has been sort of filled, I suppose. So it's quite diverse, really. Managing building projects, but also you've got the legal side of the dilapidations, and then you've got the due diligence side, which really brings in all of your skill set, really. So it's an interesting, I find it an interesting, obviously, interesting sort of role to have within the sort of property sector.
Yeah. So I guess we'll kind of dwell on it a long time. Just talk us through your kind of career history. So where did you start, and where did you go after that? I did a gap year at Carter Jonas in York, which at the time, albeit they're best known as a sort of an estate agent and then sort of commercial agent, had a building surveying team in York which did a lot of historic buildings and things like that. So that's quite obviously I'm from York originally, so it was quite an interesting and good learning experience. And then I started in 1999 at Donaldson's on graduating. Donaldson's that became part of DTZ eventually. That was based in Leeds, so I didn't stray far from home. But working in a multi-disciplinary practice as a building surveyor, again, straight from uni, straight from a year out, that was very, I suppose quite organic in terms of building surveying work, into a commercial environment, really. So understanding what, a valuation surveyor does and what a office agent does and a retail managing agent does, and getting exposed to working for each of those teams, really. So that sort of gave me a good sort of grounding in that commercial world, if you like. Left Donaldson's mid 2000s, joined CNP, which was, I suppose, by the time I joined it, probably a bigger version of what
Jones Hargreaves is now, really.
Right.
So, two guys had set it up in London. They got a office
So,
in Leeds,
so just go back to that. What made that step? When did you move to London? Was that to take that role to go to London? Or
No, sorry. I was in the Leeds office, but they'd set up in London, and then they sort of got an office had an established office in Leeds for a few years,
with you.
And then had sort of we're sort of building, like I say, not in a dissimilar way to how we are today, really.
Right.
And that was just purely a sort of mid-late 20s commercial move to get paid more at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah.
But also wanting to then, they were pure building surveyors. I'd obviously always worked or had worked for the past 5 years. All I knew was the kind of multi-disciplinary side. So it was a real sort of change in terms of where the work comes from and how the client relationships work, where previously, I suppose, and again, I don't think this is so much the case anymore, but in the firm I was at, it was very much the building surveyors were there to serve the rest of the team. So the work was won by the big machine, and the managing agents would manage, government portfolios, and we'd do the refurbs and the maintenance and the dilaps and all that kind of thing. Whereas this was now kind of, right, well, you've got to sort of get out and, you're exposed to the client more. And that, again, is, it's all about learning through your career, isn't it? And that, very quickly, again, made me sort of fully aware of what was expected and what you need to do as a commercial building surveyor, really.
Yeah. And so at some point, did you move down to London then? Or?
No, I didn't know.
Right.
So, the company was predominantly London. It had a Leeds office, and then, shortly after, it was on a growth trajectory.
Right.
So they then had Manchester and Scotland, Dublin at one point, I think, Birmingham. It got quite... They were on a sort of fairly aggressive growth trajectory, but again, based on... Similar to us, at the end of the day, you're not you're not bringing in people for the sake of bringing in people. It's because you're good at what you do, and you're growing your exposure to the market. So.
Yeah. And so, how long were you at CMP for?
So that was 4 years. Slightly sort of, well, again, this will probably answer a further question as to how we then got to set up what we did. But obviously, as I'd sort of alluded to before, the late 2000s and all the fun and games that were the property industry at that time. Obviously, we had the credit crunch, as it was called. By that point, CNP, the directors, had sold their interest in the business to an American company. Right. Bizarrely, when you think back, but which was ultimately owned by a firm called Land America, who, we just thought, okay, yeah, fine, let's crack on, nothing changes, we'll carry on. And then you were seeing things on the news at night with all this problem in America with lending short, borrowing short, lending long, and all title insurance. It turned out Land America were massively beholden to the US title insurance market, and literally went into Chapter 11 administration almost straight away, 2008. Right. And then you're sort of thinking, right, okay, this is a worry. We were still doing okay in the UK, but then of course there was a downturn, and the business contracted. A lot of the key sort of people left, and I was certainly in Leeds. I was sort of left, sort of holding the keys a little bit, and we were just sort of waiting to see what happened, really. And obviously, it was at a time where I think they were trying to, the American administrator was trying to sell the business off, right? But there's no buyers for a building surveying business when everybody else was making redundant. It was a pretty horrible time. Everybody knew people who were being made redundant left, right, and centre, and you're sort of thinking, well, I'm going to need to move, but who's going to, how's that going to work? So I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I'd always wanted to, set up, and I think without that, at some point I still would have done. But I was sort of early 30s, two preschool age daughters, and looking into a bit of an abyss, really. So, eventually that company was sort of effectively closed its doors, really. Pete and I had been we'd had our resignation letters in our pockets for about 6 months, ready for the right time, but actually waiting until we ended up, we were able, luckily for us, to sort of walk out the door with, you know, we had clients saying, well, who's going to finish this project? Or, who, you know, it's like, well, we'll do it. You know, and, we'd obviously got our own client relationships and we'd had conversations and that kind of thing. So we were quite lucky in a way to be able to step away from that, albeit you are stepping away with, you know, not a lot of redundancy money from a company that's got no cash. And then you're sort of setting up day one, right? You know, Pete's even younger than me, so we were kind of learning on the job, really. So the money didn't start flowing for quite a while, which was a difficult time. But I think it all now, when you look back, adds to that, you know, experience of life experience, I suppose, isn't it?
They say it's the best time to set up in business. If you can set up in bad times, then you should be able to weather the good times.
That's what people always said to us, and you know, there was quite a long, you know, it's bloody hard work, you know, setting up a business.
You know, a lot for anybody who like is in the industry now who does not, just doesn't, you know. I think obviously yes, COVID was a difficult period. Yeah, but my God, 2008, 2009 was just. Just brutal, absolutely brutal, and people just don't realise quite how brutal it was.
No, exactly, and it you know, you learn a lot from that. But yes, I mean, that was always our hope that, you know, if we can do all right now, because obviously, you know, it took a long time for the market to, you know, to recover and become never what it was, because it was artificially you know, it was on. It was on steroids through the mid-90s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, it was back to a sort of normal. But
I mean, you know, I was saying to somebody on the podcast in an earlier episode, I'm pretty certain there wasn't a tower crane on the horizon in Leeds until 2013.
Probably not.
And people don't appreciate just how. No. You know, I mean, London bounced back very quickly, actually. Yeah. But the regions took a long time to bounce back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously. You know, I've sort of got a very sort of national view these days, but at the time, you know, I had a very sort of Leeds view, and it always seemed to be that, you know, obviously, like I say, we're sitting in Manchester today. Manchester always seemed to be in a slightly healthier place when a recession hit or when COVID hit. Then Leeds always seemed to just get knocked a bit more, and but yeah, it was, you know, and it same in other cities as well. You know, it properly sort of retrenched things, but yeah, in terms of how it affected us, you know, we sort of got on with the job, really, and you know, carried on what we'd been grounded in at our previous company, which is to, you know, make sure that you're going above and beyond for your clients, that you're their sort of trusted advisor, and that they keep giving you the next job, and then they tell their friends, and they start giving you work as well, and you know, just that word of mouth, organic kind of growth, really, I suppose.
Pretty solid business plan, isn't it? At the end of the day, just do a good job is massively.
I mean, it is, and it's kind of There's clearly there is luck involved, but I mean, it's that old sort of expression of the harder I work, the luckier I got, I suppose, to some degree. 100%. But you know, there's a lot of things in play, isn't there?
Yeah.
In that situation.
Good. So a lot of businesses seem to have like a 2030 vision. You're at 56 head count now. Where do you see yourself by 2030 for argument's sake?
We've got sort of targets we're aiming at. I mean, in terms of head count, the head count follows the demand for our services at the end of the day. So we've got to keep relevant. We've got to keep current. We've got to keep being good at what we do. We've got to stay ahead and make sure that the clients are very happy with what we do, and that, like I say again, that word spreads, and we get, you know, further exposed to new clients and more work from existing clients, that kind of thing, and then hopefully that will grow. You know, we're not funded by anyone. We don't have anyone behind us demanding that we have to hit this and we have to hit that. It's really just. I don't think it's even, you know, it's certainly not growth for growth's sake. It's just we've got an opportunity here. We've got something that works. We've got something we think's really good, and there's, you know, hopefully our client base thinks we're really good as well, and that, you know, we could easily just stay the same size we are, start being picky about who we work for, but then I think the only way is, you know, you just can't, you know. You can't run a business like that. We're not growing because we're kind of, you know, want to take over the world. It's purely because that's the direction that we're moving in, really.
I speak to so many business owners who say, consultants business owners say, my aspiration is about 30 people, but then you just start being a victim of your own success. More clients want you because you're doing a good job, and it's like, well, better increase headcount then.
Well, that's the thing, and people sort of say, God, and obviously we put out on LinkedIn when people join, and a lot of my sort of friends or people, that aren't necessarily in the industry are like, bloody hell, Jonesy, I'm sick of seeing you on LinkedIn with new stuff. God, how do you manage all those people? So I was like, well, we've got a really good team of varying levels of experience, different levels of ages, different skills, different ways they want to take their career. And we've got some great people who, don't need managing or want to manage others. And we've got, we try and keep, every company's got a hierarchy, if you like. They've got an organogram with, somebody at the top and people at the bottom. But we try and make sure that people don't feel, we don't want to feel like that kind of hierarchical business. And that everybody sort of helps each other along, really. So, because we've got that really good sort of team ethic, it makes it. Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's crunch points and there's issues that come along, and but I don't spend all day every day just managing people and ringing them and telling them what to do. It just doesn't work like that in practice. Everyone's a professional, and they want to be there and they want to get on with the job and they enjoy doing it.
Yeah,
so we've got to try and create
good attitude. It comes back to you hire the right people, and then to an extent the business looks after itself in some ways. That's probably a bit of a simplistic way.
Slightly flippant to say, but it can do, and it does. You do have a shift change, but it's evolution, not revolution. In that, yes, 15 years ago it was, we were doing a lot more of the actual work, and I think even 7-8 years ago, when there was maybe 10 of us, it was almost a little bit like 10 one-person businesses, working out the same office, because we all had different clients, we're all doing different things, and then we were all doing all that work ourselves. Whereas now it's it's bringing others in to help us with that, and the dream then is that associate directors, senior surveyors take on that mantle of looking after a client, and then that client rings them up when they've got an issue or they've got another job, and then they grow with that and become a sort of, we don't really have titles of, client managers or account managers or anything like that. But some are lent towards that to a degree more than others. And that's, like you say, that helps. What on the surface is what you just said, business sort of looking after itself to a degree with quite a lot of curation,
Yeah. You almost make it sound too simple.
I know, it's worrying, isn't it? I'm going to... this podcast will go out and I'll be out of a job. They'll all get rid of me. But no, it's difficult to explain, really, I suppose. But yes, you've got to keep on top of things. Yeah. But because you've got trusted people, they feel like empowered to manage themselves and their
and
team.
Look, that's not a bad thing at the end of the day.
No.
It could be argued that I think a lot of businesses, what really stagnates their growth is that they don't have a good senior leadership team. You've got probably 2 or 3 people at the top who are very, very controlling, want to be involved in everything. They want to make all the decisions, and that arguably stifles businesses, because you got to give people the freedom to get on with it. Maybe make the odd mistake along the way, but be able to own something.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you're right. It's back to that point of where we could have stayed at a certain size and then just picked and chosen who we work for and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I feel like that's doing ourselves a disservice in a way. And yes, because most of our team, I suppose Pete, Matt, and I are all mid-late, in my case 40s, and a lot of the team are quite diverse in ages, but the sort of core team are sort of early 30s, and we want them to develop as a career, and they're all the kind of people they've come to work for us because they can see that there's progression and the ability to develop yourself and and to have more of the action and and to develop as a professional. So we sort of, with the right guidance, that's what we want. That's what we want them to do and to realise their potential, really.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So how do the three of you divide your roles? Is there any kind of set structure as to what you three do separately?
To a degree, yes. So Matt Williams has always been a very big sort of personality, you won't mind me saying,
right?
Particularly with clients and work winning, but also in embodying the company culture, as is Pete. Pete's very kind of technically minded, diligent, and is trusted by clients, so is very much at the forefront of that sort of client relationship piece, and then ensuring that our output and our advice that we give is on point and is and that's constantly evolving as well in terms of that expectation. I'm probably a little bit of those two, more on the kind of financial management side. I mean, somebody's got to look after the money, haven't they? And
absolutely. Yeah. Make sure you don't go bust. That's important.
Yeah, which again, you learn on the job. I mean, I know you can. There's a lot of very clever people in the finance world, etc. And we obviously have consultants that help us with that. But it's kind of the day to day with a lot of support from our team that that kind of divides up. But inevitably, there's a lot of crossover, in terms of what we do, and it just sort of works really. But we don't have specific different job titles or anything like that. And at the end of the day, certainly personally, I still like to go out and get my hands dirty and do a survey and run a project and that kind of thing. Because I think so. Less so, obviously, because albeit what we were just saying about the management of the company not being a shared responsibility. I'm not on a golf course on a Friday or anything like that. I gave that up 18 years ago because it's a demanding, time-consuming job, But getting that mix is what we want to do, really.
Yeah. So I think if my maths are correct, so have you got roughly 10 individuals who are not fee earners who
I suppose, yeah. So we would. So we've got a really good admin team. And a financial controller, Nikki, who's been with us since pretty much day one, and has grown into that role. And then we sort of class the graduate intake as sort of non-fee earning.
Right,
while they do, of course, go and initially assist others and then start to stand on their own 2 feet. We don't place a sort of fee target on their head or make any kind of financial demands of them. The key is for them to get a really good grounding in expertise and, not just the technical but the commercial aspects, and then pass their APC and then, progress and develop. And then, that's probably something we've only done in the last few years because, again, with quite small offices and a lower headcount, we didn't feel we were able to offer a graduate a really good grounding because you might have you need a team of 3 or 4 or 5 maybe for a graduate to then work across those people and learn how different people work and expose themselves to those sort of different ways of working. But now we're fully sort of sails to the wind on bringing in good graduates and giving them a good career, hopefully.
Yeah, good, excellent. So you've been going 14, 15 years. Have there been any times where it's like, have there been? Would you say there's been any mistakes or lessons that you've learned over
lots
that time?
Of mistakes, yeah. Still making mistakes. Don't stop. Yeah, you've got to be sort of you've got to try and avoid them, but especially when you're more established like this, and as you gain the critical mass, that kind of that thing sort of goes away from you. But yeah, I mean, fortunately, no sort of major glaring errors, but I think it is just learning as you go as to what works and what doesn't work, and perhaps going in again as a small firm. particularly in the situation we were in at the time, it's kind of just take on anything, take on any job. Anyone rings you up and wants something, just, and you sort of learn, actually, you've got to sort of work out what the motivations are and that kind of thing behind the client base and that kind of thing. But that's obviously less of an issue these days. But yeah, we've not really, without sounding conceited, I don't think we've made that many hugely financially crushing mistakes, if you like. We might have missed some opportunities along the way, more out of, we're not overly cautious, but it's calculated risk. But when you've come from where you've come from, you do sort of, you don't let, don't believe the hype and don't get big headed about things. That's far from what we are. So you just try and build sort of methodically and hopefully as a team, if somebody does have some crazy idea, the others can, pour cold water on it fairly quickly.
Well, that dynamic of three is really quite good, isn't it? In terms of,
it does. Yeah, there have been occasions where, some blue sky thinking has been, let's do this. And it's like, well, okay, well, maybe not. But, if we'd been individuals, you might have gone down that path, I suppose. But yeah.
So where are you as a business in terms of your approach, your investment in kind of tech? What's your view of how profession is going to change? Is AI going to change anything? Where are you with all of that piece?
We're looking, as most businesses and most sectors are, I think, looking very closely at, the advent of AI. I think, the property industry is definitely one that is often a slow adopter in terms of technologies and that kind of thing. I think it's still, we've got to remember that, the people aspect to it and the fact that it's advice that you're giving. But AI could definitely improve processes. It can probably help with quality of output. It can save time in certain tasks. But it has to be, again, we're trialing things at the moment rather than saying, right, we're now getting AI to do this for us because we want to be able to trust it. And obviously, AI as a function is as, to work for you and your business, you have to feed that machine, if you like, with what you want to get out of it. So there's a bit of a time involvement and a careful study. I mean, an example is, you can... a lot of our work in dilapidations starts with getting a copy of the lease before you go to the building, right, understand what the tenant's obligations are. Well, can I feed that into Copilot and will that save me an hour of reading through and, asking the admin team which sections of the lease I need to be putting in the report, what I need to be aware of? Yes, you can, and I'm sure that will happen, but at the moment we're doing that and you're then still not quite trusting what's coming out, when you've then got to go and do the job and issue the report and rely on the information you've taken. If there's something that's been missed, you can't, again, it's just an example really, I suppose.
Yeah.
But,
I get that.
I think, we are keen to adopt and, where it adds value, where it, makes us better, then definitely.
Yeah. So just parking AI for a second then, how would you say in, let's say, the last 5 years, that you kind of, the kind of, I guess, software, tech, anything, has any of that evolved, would you say, significantly in
It has to a degree, I suppose. It is still, building surveying is relatively analog. If I've got a client who wants to buy this building, we've still got to read all the documentation. We've still got to come round, look at it. Yeah. Yes, we don't need to hire a cherry picker and close the road to look at the roof anymore. We can use drone technology and that kind of thing. Albeit, again, that has its advantages and occasionally disadvantages because, you're taking video and photos or something rather than physically seeing it, up front. You can't, we tend to get sort of, if you're something as simple as you're looking in a gutter, well, if it's full of leaves, then you can take a picture of it. It's like, it's full of leaves, but is there holes in it? Well, I don't know because I didn't get up there and get my hand in it. It's kind of that kind of thing. So you've got to make sure that you're not over relying on things. But it can be, and a lot of the lot of the younger members of the team will go around with their iPad and they'll have the drawing downloaded on. They'll be making notes and speaking into it and that kind of thing. And then you've got old guys like me with writing 10 sheets of A4 on their day book, you know, pen running out, and how do you scribble notes in the pouring rain and all this kind of thing. So there's an element of sort of that. But yes, there is software that can, you know, that's helping us with managing projects. Obviously, with the bringing in the M&E and the energy team there, and the other side of what the energy team do, perhaps, is, you know, the environmental studies. That requires a lot of software input and use of software that is evolving all the time. So that's a given. But yeah, I think the day-to-day building surveying stuff is like I say, still sort of pair of eyes.
Well,
and ability to articulate what you're seeing onto the page, kind of thing.
100%. And so you think, in terms of your expectation about how building surveying will develop, you don't see any at this stage where there's going to be a massive change in. I would argue that maybe other disciplines, there's like I say, I spend a lot of time recruiting QSs, and there's an argument that maybe some of the technology today is going to speed up some of the process around kind of analysing data, producing data, assessing it, and that will make certain businesses much more efficient than ones who are still doing everything very traditionally. Within building surveying, do you see there's any scope for that, or do you think actually just because it's still very analog in terms of its nature, that there's not that many ways to speed up almost like if you've got a senior building surveyor, I guess I'm asking is, do you think over the next 5 or 10 years you're going to be able to say, right, we can get more out of that senior building surveyor, not because they're a better or worse building surveyor than somebody else, but because we can give them tools to make their job more efficient? Yeah,
definitely. And I think some areas of the job can be quite repetitive. But again, there's so many nuances to things that it would, even if you could get, you know, a piece of software where you drop in, you can use the type of things that QS uses. That strays into building surveying when you're doing a smaller project that doesn't have a QS. You're running the cost side of it, and having software to assist with that, definitely. But then, you know, if you're getting it to write a specification for, you know, a refurbishment project, again, yes, it could do a lot of the legwork, if you like, but it'll still need that, and probably more so needs that element of checking and interpreting, and that's where you don't want to sort of miss things because you've gone too far into that side of things, I suppose. But I'm sounding a little bit like a Philistine, I suppose, which is absolutely not the case. But I think it's like with everything, you've just got to be careful how you implement it and what you rely on.
There's a lot of there's obviously at the moment it feels like a bit of a gold rush, and there's like a lot of like snake oil salesmen out there trying to tell you that this thing will do that, and it won't do yet. I don't believe. And some of it is not. Again, I think there's a lot of confusion around. A lot of people are lumping the whole anything to do with technology is almost the labeling as AI, and it's not.
No.
Some of it is just like probably technology that's existed 10, 15 years. It's just making, you know, some companies are making better use of using technology. It's like, you know, I guess, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, just kind of automating the process in terms of, you know, you're writing an instruction or requesting, let's say it's a small refurb, messaging out to a contractor and maybe a follow-on sequence so that you know you're not having to physically rely on the surveyor to remember to manually chase up the
it's that process. It can help with the processes, can't it? Definitely. Whether you can educate it to understand the nuances of one building versus another, probably not. But you can certainly, there's certainly a lot of labour saving and standardisation that can be brought about, I suppose. Definitely. It was interesting, actually. I mean, we don't at the moment have sort of measured surveying as a discipline in our business. We have sort of looked at it in terms of, you know, when we're doing technical due diligence, the client will probably want a measured area report.
Right.
And obviously in dilapidations, there's a degree of measurement, or in a project where, you know, a lot of the sort of smaller buildings may not have drawn information about them, older buildings, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of moves to technology in that. And it was interesting, we were talking to one of our graduates to be, she's currently in a final year and talking about a dissertation the other day, which was about using AI in dilapidations, funnily enough,
Right.
and about measuring the building. And obviously now, before, well, certainly if you go back to the mid-90s, it was 2 people and a tape measure, and then it became, various types of laser scanning, distos, and now it's, very up to the minute scanners. You can walk around a building in half an hour holding a whizzy piece of kit, and it'll produce you a plan. But at the moment, all the information that comes off that is gigabytes and gigabytes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
if we do that for every building we, at the moment, come into contact with, because we think, actually, while we're doing this dilapidations or this job, why don't we measure it? Because the client might want some drawings, or they might in future want to, it'll help with the energy performance certificate calculations and all that kind of thing. But, the issue with data centers and the carbon
absolutely,
impact of those, that again, I'm sure will develop so that they'll be able to condense that kind of data, but it's all things that need to happen before we can adopt that as a process, I suppose.
And you're right, almost sometimes you can have too much data, can't you? So it gets ridiculous. It's like,
exactly.
More than what you need. And and that in itself sometimes creates more work rather than less work.
Well, it can do, you take on a building survey, a due diligence report. I mean, again, that's the quality of that to clients now is far beyond what it was, 20 years ago, where it was literally, is this building going to stay up or not? And now we're looking at energy performance, we're looking at the legal aspects of the tenant relationships. We're looking at, now obviously, the fire side of things, the compliance side of things, and actually probably 70% of the report isn't about the bricks and the mortar and the heating and the cooling and what have you. But then there's obviously, again, we'd go and do a building survey and just see that building, whereas now it's, right, well, the data, the data site is live, right, go and download your documents and there'll be 27 leases and 15 different planning consents. There'll be 4 different title plans, and again, each time if there's a way of condensing that. But of course, you could be looking at a lease. Yes, fine, it was drafted 3 years ago and it's in quite a format. You might be looking at one that's a sublease of something that was drafted in 1967. Then you've got to. You can't feed that into Copilot. It's not going to make any sense, kind of thing. So
right, okay.
There's a lot of nuances to consider.
It's a bit of a bizarre question, interesting question, maybe. What do you think makes a good building surveyor? And you from in over your years, you'll have met some exceptional building surveyors, and some probably pretty poor building surveyors. 2 of which may both be MRICS building surveyors. What do you think distinguishes a good one from a not so good one?
I think, first and foremost, you've got to have technical knowledge. You've got to know what you're talking about, because you get, whether you're in front of a client or whether you're, up against another building surveyor in a dilaps or whatever, you'll get found out pretty quickly. There are, there's a huge amount of knowledge to have, and pretending that you know absolutely everything about everything in building surveying is, you just don't really. No. Some are more technically minded than others are more commercially minded than others. And I think from our perspective at Jones Hargreaves, really it's having that, the technical knowledge is an absolute must, but having that ability to express what your thoughts are or what the advice you want to give in a commercial way to the client that they're going to understand and that's going to be useful to them, they can implement, they can move forward with, rather than, we do see, or we used to see, reports from people where it's just problem. Right, well, I'm trying to buy this building, guys, so what I need is, it sounds a bit corny, but bring me solutions, not problems. And there might be solutions which are optionalized, but make sure that if you've got something, if you're giving advice to a client, you've got to drive that commercially. You've got to do it relatively quickly. Get that. Our clients could go down the street to one of 100 firms and get probably the same advice, but we want to be able to deliver it, in a better, more readable way and an understandable way, and then be there to not just deliver it and chuck the fee in and run for the hills, be there to answer the queries, to take it on. We want to keep working with that client. We want to help them to do what they want to do with that building or that piece of real estate.
And maybe I guess give them, some, think commercially on behalf of the client and think,
well, if there might
be more than one solution to what you do with the building. To get the best outcome, best yield, whatever it may be.
Yeah, common sense, somebody's, just having a little bit of commercial knowledge about, what the rent might be on that building, what they might be able to let that warehouse for. They don't want you to report to them that you're going to have to completely reclad the whole thing and it's going to cost £2 million when the building's only worth not even that, it's just having that, and that comes with experience. But I think, I think it's just that understanding, in terms of what makes good building surveyors, the technical, that commercial, that ability to get your message across to somebody who isn't another building surveyor. It's not all in acronyms and technical terminology, but then to acknowledge that you don't know everything, and that you need to keep developing, you need to keep exposing yourself to new things, take advice from other consultants like we, the M&E team and the energy team in house. I think now certainly for me, I'm learning things from them all the time, and I think everybody else is. And again, it's another benefit to bringing those members of the team in house is that people get that rounded level of experience and get the knowledge, and can deliver it really and understand it.
Yeah, good. And what do you think? I mean, I think it's across all surveying disciplines, to be fair. But what do you think? How are we going to fix the fact that I think the RCS brought out data last year that the average age of a chartered surveyor is 55.
I've not made it yet, then that's all right. Yeah.
How are we going to fix that in terms of how we're going to convince enough people to become building surveyors?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'd sort of, we talk about this quite a lot, and I think I may have even been in the Yorkshire Post talking about this not long ago. But we've got to market the career really. We've been lucky in that the graduates that we're now bringing through, and we had three that qualified in London and in the Southwest in December, and the quality of the degree courses is improving and that kind of thing. And I suppose it's selling it as a career that let's face it, at the end of the day, is going to pay well, and it's going to be interesting and give you a sort of a rewarding sort of career. So I mean, yes, you have to be interested in the built environment, but you could have a little bit of a sort of interest in legal matters. You could have an interest in sort of commercial matters a little bit. But yeah, I think it's really, I think without talking down the RICS, I think for them to be sort of sitting there going, oh well, why aren't there all these people coming to the profession? Well, you're the industry body, and we're all chartered surveyors, and perhaps we all need to be a bit more involved in that body in terms of attracting people into the profession. Other than selling it, marketing it, I mean, as you say, you referred to the sort of golden age of the building surveyor. Certainly, it's certainly a better starting salary than it ever was. I know there's inflation along the way and stuff, but there's certainly, I feel like it's more of a respected career than it perhaps used to be, where it was quite subservient to other other roles within commercial property. But it's how we do it, I don't know, but you've got to just got to spread the word, I suppose, somehow.
It's tough, isn't it? I think collectively maybe more construction than property, but it's it's still not perceived as an exciting industry, I think, and the reality is there's probably going to be, for younger people, going to be a lot more tech advancements in terms of how things are done, which is what we need to just change the perception of the overall property and construction sector, I think, don't we?
Yeah, and I'm told it's no different for actual people actually working in the building industry, and trying to attract people into that that world.
Trades are,
trades and that kind of thing, which are crucial and are going to stay. We're not going to not need, in the next 50, 60 years, we're going to need electricians, plumbers, plasterers, bricklayers. It's not all of a sudden going to be a dead art, and certainly building surveying and our role isn't either. I think, to be honest as well, I think perhaps looking and again, without getting too political, the kind of on the last night and today on the news, all the sort of negativity around student loans and the cost of going to university and all of that kind of thing. Perhaps moving to more of an apprenticeship system might attract people. I think perhaps people finishing BTECs and A levels and other sort of qualifications are thinking, well, I don't actually want to incur all that debt. I don't want, I'll still get a degree, but I want to work on the job. And
arguably it's better, isn't it? You're going to learn quicker and better, aren't you? I think. Yeah. The problem is, though, I bang on about this all the time. I think the government is shooting themselves in the foot that it's making it so expensive to hire young people. And I think more businesses across all sectors, all industries, would give a lot more young people opportunity if it didn't cost so much to get them in the door in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, completely different area and slight tangent, but my eldest daughter's 20 years old. I mean, she's at drama school, but when she's trying to get a job over the summer, the employer has now, and then she'll be 21 next year, and the employer will have to pay her. What is a really decent amount of money, and minimum wage has to. I fully believe in the minimum wage, but I think she'd rather have a job at a slightly lesser pay and have a job than not have a job at all.
I agree, because people can get all very excited and get on the soapbox about this and say, oh yeah, but it's like you can't make somebody work for that lower money. It's like. No. Well, okay, then the state will have to pay them then to be on the dole. Which would you rather?
Which way round do you want it? But yeah, I suppose as an employer, if you are, if you run a shop or a coffee shop or a bar or whatever, and you've got 3 young people sitting in front of you and 2 of them have got experience and 1 hasn't, you're going to go with those. But how do you get that experience? And it's the same if you transfer that into the professional world as well. Yeah, I think yes, that is a big sort of consideration, really.
Anyway, we won't get political.
No,
podcast. That's beyond our pay grade. Matthew, thanks for coming on board. I always close with it was 1 question, now 2 questions. So I've not prepped you, I don't think. We need to change our brief. I've not prepped you on the second one. But first one is, who would you say in your career, and it can be more than one person, but who would you say in your career has been your best kind of mentor or boss? Different people term this term differently.
It's interesting, isn't it, really? Because I think you pick up bits from lots of different people that you've worked with or for. I think, you see that a lot, slightly dodgy analogy, but, with like football managers, it's like certainly some of the older ones like, well, I played for Alex Ferguson, I played for Brian Clough, I played for, and they adopt certain parts, but then certain parts, they're like, I'm not doing that, I think back to, and times change, don't they? I think back to my even late 90s, working for a company where, the higher ups, the partners wouldn't speak to a graduate, wouldn't even say good morning to them, and it's kind of very kind of, and you pick up ways of, that influences you, doesn't it? And then you go and work for somebody who's not like that. And, we have picked up as a business, I suppose, a lot from when Pete and I and Matt were at CNP. So that was Dave Nurser and his colleague Andrew Chisholm, who'd sort of set that up in their own image. But we've sort of probably taken a lot from them in terms of how to, be... how to create a nice place to work, an enjoyable place to work. Yeah, like we were just saying, we enjoy the building surveying aspect of things, but at the end of the day, going for a beer on a Friday afternoon, or having some team time, or just enjoying being in the office. Dreadful word, but office banter and things like that. To make
it's not a dreadful word. I get on, again. This stuff like this annoys me. It's like. We're seriously in a world where banter's like, you can't have banter. You can't have a laugh. You can't have a joke.
No, it depends. Yeah, the right kind of banter, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, again, going back 20, 30 years, the office banter was not what the office banter is now.
True.
And it's a better world for it, I think.
Yeah, agreed. It's evolved for sure.
I could share a few stories and I won't. But yeah, I think, we've not completely, just carbon copied ourselves, but there was a lot there that we could see. We enjoyed working in that environment.
Good.
I probably left a previous employer because I wasn't enjoying working in that environment.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of an eye-opener when I came into the new environment. It's like, company credit card, what do I use this for? Well, I use it for beers on a Friday lunch. Really? It doesn't, it's not all alcohol driven, obviously, not making it sound like it is, but, it's kind of just that, it's not that kind of, maybe it's penny pinching, that kind of thing where actually, you feel valued, you feel like you're wanted there, you feel like you're part of the team, you feel useful, you feel rewarded.
Yeah. And,
that's probably what we'd pick up from. But at the same time, you've still got to work hard. But I think that, it's a two-way street. And that's hopefully my colleagues would agree. But, it's we try and create a healthy, positive working environment that everybody enjoys, really, in the most part.
Good. And the last question, are you a reader? Do you read books?
To a degree, probably a time thing, but yeah, to a reasonable degree.
So if there was a book you would gift a new business owner, what would it be?
I'm not one for reading, self-help books or management books, but somebody... Well, my wife suggested it that because somebody that she had worked with had sort of made everyone read, and I think a colleague at the time of CNP going bust and me thinking, how do I feed a family on nothing and this kind of thing. And there's a management book called Who Moved My Cheese, which you've probably heard of.
Yeah, read it.
Which is sort of boils it down and is quite but intentionally really. Yeah. And I think that in terms of. It's supposed to help you deal with change, but it's kind of making you realise where you need to be, and that things don't always stay the same, and you don't always sit in your lane and do your same thing. You've got to sort of get up and move around. And
it's still a classic. I mean, I don't know how old it is now. It probably is 20, 30 years over. It's still a classic.
It is probably now. You've probably heard that one a few times asking that question. That was one that sprung to mind. Seeing as you hadn't prepped me for it, if you prepped me for it, I might have said something else. But I don't know. But yeah, that. No,
but that is a great book, and it's a really quick read. You could probably read it in a day, can't you?
That was the idea, really, because I'm not. I think I'll read fiction books on holiday, but that's I tend to there's so much going on in my head on a day to day that that other things sort of I rely on for downtime. But yeah. So no, good. I think anything like that's
good,
beneficial.
Good recommendation. Matthew, thank you very much for your time. I strongly suspect if we were to sit here in 2 years' time, then that 56 number will have gone up probably quite significantly. But look, wish you all the best for Jones Hargreaves, and thank you for being involved.
No, thanks for inviting me. Been great.